Courage, if you know the definition of it, means not deterred by danger or pain. That is the exact definition of courage, not deterred by danger or pain. And so I love that your show is called Wild Courage, because you must be willing to face the danger and the pain if you're going to challenge yourself to do different things.
There's a word you've used, I think I've counted like 10 times so far.
Hopefully it's not like, or hopefully it's not kind of, because I've been told not to use either one of them.
There's a rite of passage. It takes wild courage.
Yes.
Wild.
Yeah, it's an interesting, kind of, just to get into politics real quick, and then we'll get started. Interesting dynamic, because obviously, you have Ruben on one side, but you have, with you and Carrie, I used to cover Trump, so throughout the Southwest. So I'd go to all the events. I'd see you at a lot of events. And now it's like, well, she got the endorsement, and I don't know if that's something that you went after or pursued or not. It's probably,
Really?
It is what it is, right? She's going to have that. And now it's like, to me, outsider looking in, and hopefully this doesn't offend you, but it's like, you can kind of grab this wing and this chunk of the pie that's doesn't want the MAGA side, that just kind of wants mainstream McCain level type of Republican, sort of what the MAGA Republican would call a rhino.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm right here. I'm a normal Republican, common sense. Like, to me, there's a lot of people like my parents, and they're like, that's what I'm looking for.
There's a ton. And what I learned as a sheriff is you represent everybody. So what you do is you say, here's what I believe in, here's who I am. But then you expound yourself and say, I serve everybody. And so it really has left me in a great lane. Like, I would like people that are MAGA supporters. I want the people that are more moderate. I want the independents. And I would love to have Democrat support. Because really what I'm trying to portray is, I represent all people. I'm here to support you. That's what I've done as a sheriff. I think you tell people where you're at, they know where your compass points, and they can live with that. They may or may not agree with you, but they know where you go. What they don't want inauthentic people, and they don't want people who change all the time. And so I'm just running a steady course, and it seems to be working.
Thank you. Inauthentic. And politics.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be very rare to feel inside an authenticity in a political race.
Yeah.
And this is why Billy and I work together, because he's very much inside, and I'm just the person that kind of watches and feels and senses into things. I'm more on the, I don't want to say, well, maybe emotional, like I feel into things intuitively. Mm-hmm. And he can be very black and white with an open mind, but we both.
That's a good balance, though.
It is.
It's working, yeah.
But well, the ones that I have seen, and I haven't seen a lot of you, just to be honest. Like,
it's great. It's all really great.
So this makes me very authentic to you.
That's what's interesting.
There's no filter going on.
This is going to be a show and an interview and a conversation, really, probably unlike you're used to doing, or unlike you typically do on the campaign trail, or even as sheriff. You're going to be speaking today to a lot of alternative type people, a lot of young people, a lot of people that, given the current landscape in Arizona and the current landscape across the country, really, are now involved.
Yeah. Now they're ready for something new.
Something new. I have a voice. I'm pissed off about X, whether it's abortion or the border or crime or inflation or foreign wars. I can go right down the list. They're like, you know what? This time I'm going to step up and vote. No more sitting out. So those are the people you're going to speak to today. And so it's going to be a little bit different, open, honest conversation. We go pretty deep on this show. So I'm gonna start things here. So yesterday, and this is tough. This is tough to bring up, but I'm going to because I'm speaking to you. Yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of my brother's death. Okay, so I was reflecting on that, and also reflecting on this interview and this conversation. And I remember when that happened, I went through a lot of change as a man. I went through a lot of change in my career, and I just stopped giving an F about a lot of things. So I guess my question to you is, given the complete tragic loss that you've experienced with a car accident that's been highly publicized, why are you sitting here in our studio today? Like, why do this? Why run for U.S. Senate? Why not just kind of, for lack of a better term, crawl back into your house, into bed, and just deal with the pain.
And that's how you feel initially, I mean, when this happened to us for the first couple of weeks, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to run for office. I was barely wanting to do it in the beginning. It wasn't, and that happened, and it just kind of knocked us completely off our path. And you bring up something really important, because it's a very fine line between I just don't care anymore, or I'm focused on, I don't care about the things that aren't important anymore. And so that's really what the lane we found is. We kind of snapped out of it. And instead of saying we don't care, we do say that, but we don't care about the things that aren't important anymore. What we care about are our children, our family, and what we can do, what mark we're going to leave in this world. Two of the things that we realize is there is no guarantee for tomorrow. And the only thing we take with us in this life is what we do. And we had a choice. We were going to do something about the situation we don't like, or we were going to sit by and do nothing. We opted to do something about it. We opted to be part of the change. And that's what drives us. And I think it's really put us in a good spot, because we don't care about other things anymore that are not important in life. They're really things that we tend to get tied up with. We get emotionally charged about. I either can't control it, or it's really not that important in the grand scheme of things anyway. And so I think what we found was pulling away from that I don't care, just into that sweet spot of I care about the things that I care about.
Yeah, what matters. I really, truly love exactly what you pointed to in that, because I feel my senses, and of course we're all in this human experience, so every one of us has had something deep that we can touch into, that connects us, that's profound, that puts us on our knees. And I find that those are what causes, I'll say, the opportunity, because not everybody takes that opportunity. Some people can close your heart in that and curl under a rock or be bitter. Or the opportunity is it can open us into and put things into perspective, connect us more deeply, and coming full circle to that authenticity. Like, what even is that? That's us living through our heart. Not to be cheesy, but really.
It's true. The experiences that we experience in life are designed to, there must be an equal and opposite. There's an opposite in everything. For you to truly experience love, sometimes you have to experience loss of it, some level of loss, whether it's they pass or you just lose that person, they decide to move on. Then the next time you get into something, you appreciate it even more. So I think what it did is it deepened our relationship with our 4 other children. Not that we didn't love them before, but we realized how fragile everything can be. And so we've kind of just really embraced the things that we love. And it's really, those experiences really kind of help you. They really sweeten it if you can look at it the right way. If you look at it the wrong way, it'll tear you apart. It'll drag you down. When I speak to kids all the time, one of the things I tell them 3 things. Be authentic. Don't be afraid to do the uncomfortable work. But the third one is probably the most important, which is surrender the outcome. Because in life, the only 2 things you can control, and this is the cause of most unhappiness, anger, frustration, especially for the youth out there, because the world is chaotic right now. And you might feel frustration or unhappiness or anger. It's because you're trying to control an outcome that you can't control. So you must surrender the outcome. Mm-hmm. And the only 2 things you can control are your attitude and your work output.
Yeah.
And so we have chosen to focus on things that we can control. I couldn't control losing my son, my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law. There was nothing I could do. And it was hard because I pull people over for DUI. But there was nothing I could change. So we had to make a conscientious decision. Were we going to take that experience and dig into it and really let it bring out what it was designed to bring out? Or do we let it crush us?
Yeah. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy to listen to you speak this way and for our audience to hear what you have to say today, because I knew this as someone that follows politics. But a lot of our audience, as I mentioned, knows you, but they kind of know the caricature. They know the cowboy hat, they know the straps, they know the sheriff, but they don't really know you as a man. So I'm really happy that you're able to speak about this topic and speak out. What about that? Like, you're such a manly man. You pull up in your truck, the cup, the whole thing, and everyone knows Sheriff Lamb. But now you're running to be a senator. Now you're going to have voting power that's going to affect Americans' lives. You're going to have voting power that's going to affect people's lives all around the world, given the wars we have going on right now. How do you do that to be such a manly man, but you've got to now somehow show that you're also really buttoned up as this business politician, well thought out individual? It's almost like what got you so much popularity and fame, and this great job you've done as sheriff, might hurt you because there's this stereotype around, oh, he's just this cowboy, which isn't true.
Right. And there's a stereotype when you talk about the border, when you talk about crime. We're in a profession where I'm expected to uphold the rule of law. And so you have to have this certain level of toughness about you. But nobody understands the humanity greater than somebody who's in the rule of law. Because we see what the average police officer will experience 400 to 700 traumatic experiences throughout their career. The average citizen experiences 2 to 4.
Wow.
So we get humanity and it sometimes tears us apart. Some cops fall into alcoholism. Some cops become angry and mean. But the reality is most cops, we see life in a very different way than the average person does. And you're right. I have to put up a front, this masculine front. I need to be able to walk into a room where it's complete chaos, and my mere presence needs to start to restore that. But at the same time, you have to put off this era that I get what you're going through, and we're going to work through this together. And that's kind of the challenge. You're right. It is the hard challenge to say now, folks, this is the other part of me that you may not see because I'm viewed as the law guy. You're expected to make tough decisions. I'm in the business of bad optics. And so we knew this was one of the challenges. And so what we did was we got into it early so that I could get out to speak to as many people. And while I can address the issues that we're facing, I can also address the hope and the courage and everything that comes along with trying to change our country. Here's the irony. Whether you are extremely liberal or extremely conservative, the irony is there are people now that are out protesting and they are doing these camps and all these things. They are just as angry about everything as everybody that's over on this side.
That's true.
And so we have a common bond. And the bond is we're not happy with the way things are. So what we have to do is what my job is now is to say, and this is what you learn in law enforcement. We have a problem. We both may not see it the same way, but we both want it better to be better. So how do we go about fixing it? And I think that's been the tough thing is that's what my job has been is to how do I portray that to people? Because I truly am. I'm a big heart guy. I am. That's why we do this job. If I didn't care, I wouldn't go do this job. I wouldn't care about other people. The fact that we continue to put on the gun and the badge tells you we care what happens to people.
So I have like something that's a twofold question. Given what we talked about earlier in the devastation and that opens something because you had the courage, this show's called Wild Courage, right? You had the courage to find this path that we'll say opened your heart. And that's where we all truly connect. Because to your point, when we're just going at each other, we're not connecting. It doesn't matter. It's whipped cream on shit. It's like the same bullshit over and over again. But let me ask you, what now, Billy asked in the beginning, so why are you here? And you chose to take this path of politics along with this, we'll say, awakening of what you discovered. What shifted? What's distinctive there about you? What did that cause? What's the ripple effect of that in the world that you're in now?
I don't know that a ton shifted because I was moderately considering. I'm not a politician. I'm a patriot who loves God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. That's why I do what I do. That's what I love. And I want a better country. And so I believe that you shouldn't be a guy that complains about it. You should be willing to do something about it. I think what shifted for me is I don't know that I would have done that. I don't think I would have run.
Oh.
Because my son had a drug problem. My son went through a really tough time. My son got into fentanyl, and we were struggling as a family. And then we got a call one day while we were at a charity event. He calls us and said, "Dad, I just hit a guy on a bike." And so we hurried and drove over to where he was. Sure enough, we pull up there. We see his car wrecked. I see him standing there, and I look at him, I check on him. I walk over to the other guy, and I look at the guy, and I'm praying that he doesn't die, because if he dies, then we got real problems. We got problems anyway, but it changes everything. And one of the hardest things I ever did was walk back over to my son and say to my son, "I have to leave you here. If I stay here, they're going to say that I influenced this in some way." So my wife and I had to literally just leave my son standing there amongst 8 cops. And I knew what he was in for. And we had to walk away and leave him to that. Ultimately, my son, the guy didn't die. So my son get charged. He ended up doing 6 months in our jail. I don't think I would have ran, because I didn't want to drag him through that again, because it was a very political thing. They hit me. You should have seen the things that people said to my son online. And my son is the most tender-hearted kid. It crushed him that he hurt this man. And it really bothered him. So I don't know that I would have probably done the Senate race. So when I lose my son, what changed was I didn't have anything holding me back anymore. There was nothing that, at this point, it almost felt the other way, where we thought, this is something we should be doing, because we weren't going to do it if he was, but once he passed, we felt like we have no reason to say not to do it. So I would say that was the shift, is it was something that it kind of cleared it out from in front of us, and it gave us a path to move forward through. And we hate to lose our child and our grandchild, but it was something that probably would have kept me from doing it.
Got it.
And I love the Kyle Wilde courage, because courage, if you know the definition of it, means not deterred by danger or pain. And so anything you do in life that is of any worth will require you to go through danger or pain. And that is the exact definition of courage, not deterred by danger or pain. And so I love that your show is called Wild Courage, because you must be willing to face the danger and the pain if you're going to challenge yourself to do different things.
Really?
That's awesome. So there's a word you've used, I think I've counted like 10 times so far.
Hopefully it's not like, or hopefully it's not kind of, because I've been told not to use either one of them.
No, it's a beautiful word in this context, and it's we. You keep saying we. And I'm going to point at your wife here behind the camera. And when you say we, this is a partnership, a true partnership. Yeah. And the decisions that you're making as, a father and a husband, but now to put yourself out there and to run, it sounds like it's a we decision, not a you decision.
100%. I wouldn't have done this if my wife wasn't willing to do it. Not only was she willing, but she's right there with me every step of the way. 90% of what we have done along this campaign trail, she has been right there by my side, if not more. And we knew that was going to be the case. This was something we were going to do as a partnership and as a family. This includes our children, and they're, leaving a legacy for them as well, telling our children, you can do great things, you can challenge yourself. And so my wife and I believe in that. And this was something, if you don't have your partner, your spouse on board, I'm sorry, this would be a very tough task. And so this was something we endeavored together. And when we win, it'll be because we won, not me, not any one of us. We together won. And that includes our team too, because they've put a lot of it into it as well.
Do you ever imagine, when I talk to men like you, I'm someone that's never been married, but when I talk to men like you that have this, I can see it in your eyes, it's a true partnership, right? It's real. I mean, a lot of it, we all know people out there, we don't have to name names, that they may, or they allegedly sleep in the same bedroom, probably not. Yeah. But, this is a true partnership. So do you ever think about, if you didn't have Janelle, if you didn't have your wife, like if you were just a single guy, you were a sheriff, who would you be? I mean, who would you be as a man without her as
not
your
me.
wing woman?
Probably wouldn't be the sheriff. I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't have the drive to challenge myself. I think my children and my wife drive me to do the things that I do, because I either, you're pushing to test your own limits, but you're also doing it because you want to show your children what you're capable of doing, there is no ceiling. And so I've been married for 30 years. My wife and I have been married for 30 years. We have 5 kids and 3 grandchildren. And I don't know what life would be like
Purpose.
without her.
I hear purpose.
Yeah.
You know, I've come across many, we'll just say men, and even recently I was at a retreat, and there was somebody there who's just a very high profile person and very wildly successful. And he was having this conversation where oftentimes when you get to that point in life where it's this pinnacle of all goals have been obtained, they can either commit suicide, it's pretty common, or at bare minimum have these suicidal thoughts because their purpose, they're devoid of this purpose. And I feel that, and it's all kind of connecting. You know, you're saying, I have a really big heart, because just because you're married is not going to cause that purpose in your relationship. There's something deeper and more profound that causes that. But that's what I hear in that.
Are you a man of faith as well?
Oh, yeah. Church every weekend. Our faith is, you have to have an anchor in life. And you certainly have to have an anchor in this profession. If you don't, you will drift off.
For sure. Yeah.
And you will face the storms, and it will likely capsize your boat. So you must have an anchor, and our faith is our anchor. I wouldn't have made it through the loss of my child and my grandchild and my daughter-in-law. We wouldn't have made it through all of that if it wasn't for faith. And I think faith is really kind of what drives you, because it gives you some purpose. You're here for a reason. We believe we're here to make yourself the best you can be. To challenge yourself.
I want to ask something important about this, because I feel like this is just very illuminated in these times. I appreciate that very much. And I love whatever that is that connects somebody to that space. But in these times, even I know, and I don't watch news religiously, but even I know, religion is now encroaching in these political structures, causing laws and things of this nature to like dictating how we're supposed to believe. And if I don't agree with what you believe in, then there's some kind of punishment or dictatorship here. This is what I'm noticing, that it's starting to get skewed. It's taking it out of this sort of beautiful faith that's for you and your family and whatever is personal to you. And now it's pushing it.
Such a great.
That's a great, and I face that all the time. And if you know anything about me, I am extreme freedom guy. So I'm extremely into the First Amendment. So it's your right to believe whatever you choose to believe. Like, I don't like it as well that people say, I believe in this and you should too. I don't like that. Like, here's what I believe in, and I don't push that on to anybody. It is what works for us. It's what works for my wife, my family, my kids. And we don't push that on anybody. And that's what I get frustrated with too. Like, you've got, even outside of what we know as conventional religion, you have ideologies that have become religions. And they're pushing that on there. And if I don't believe like you, all of a sudden I'm a terrible person? No. I just believe different than you. That's what makes the world great, is that we have differences of opinions. I want people to be different. That is what is fun about this world and this life, is that people are different. And so I'm one of those guys that says, you have the right to believe whatever you want, and I'm going to support that. This is what I believe, and I'm asking that you don't try to belittle me or think of me different because I believe a certain way. What's right for me may not be right for you, but I respect whatever you bring to the table.
So this is a perfect moment in our conversation to bring this up, because I have to. You have a job to do. I have a job to do as well. So, we're sitting with a man here who could, in fact, be a United States Senator, which is, a lot of people don't understand how powerful that is because of voting. I am obviously a man. I am not married. Like I said, I do not have any kids. I do not feel comfortable at all talking about this. You know it's coming. But I have to ask, because we have an audience. As a man, of faith, how do you answer the abortion question now that it's gone back to the state? And I'm trying to ask this in a little bit of a different way because I'm sure you get this 5,000 times a day.
Believe it or not, no.
Do you feel the need to have a strong number, X amount of weeks, whatever it is, or a strong pro-life? Or do you feel like, hey, it's up to the people, there's going to eventually be a referendum, and we'll go from there? I mean, how do you deal with that? I don't even like to bring up the topic because I feel like it's, who am I to tell you or you what to do with your body? That's where I stand. But you actually have to answer this question because you could have the vote.
I don't think saying you're pro-life is telling anybody how to do it. I believe in life. I believe that life starts at conception. I think that the government got it right by saying the federal government shouldn't be telling you what to do. I don't need the government to set my moral compass for me. Here's what I know. We're never going to agree on abortion. People are going to be all over the spectrum. People are going to be all the way up to birth. Some people are going to be zero exceptions. Some people are going to be at 15 weeks, whatever it be. Here's what I would ask people. We're going to be all over the place on this. It is an emotional issue, and politicians are using this right now to supercharge people in a vote. What I'm saying is, don't let them push you into this being a single issue, because there are other issues that are just affecting not a portion of Americans, but all Americans. And those issues happen to be border security, national security. We've got fentanyl poisonings that are happening and killing Americans every day. We have the economy that is terrible, that people can't pay for gas or groceries. We have a lot of other issues that people, I'm only asking, you may not agree. I'm a pro-life guy. You may not agree with that, but I'm also a pro-freedom guy. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe that I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, but I will do everything I can to protect life. That's what I've done as a career. That's been my job for the last 2 decades, is I fight to protect men, women, their health, teenagers, children, babies. And I don't know that anybody should expect me to reverse any type of course on that. So.
I just, you know, the way they pose this whole thing, I just feel so bamboozling, because if you're pro-choice, that doesn't mean that you're not pro-life. But yet, to vote, to be pro-life, now we have to kind of address all the things that the law has stated that is. So if then that gets passed, I don't get the right to my own body.
Which law are you talking about?
Isn't that
Right.
pro-life?
So they changed,
Well, if you're fully pro-life, right? But they changed recently from the old
I think
one.
pro-life is more people believe like we should do everything we can to protect life. Let's have a real conversation about the majority of abortions. Less than 1% constitute rape or incest, and those are awful situations, and people have tough decisions to make. 74% of abortions, and this comes from the Guttmacher Institute, they're a pro-choice organization. 74% are from women that said that their health or their education or their life would have been altered in a significant manner. Another 73% said they were single women and they didn't want to be, no, that was 48%. Another 73% said they didn't have the money to do it. So the percentages are much greater. The personal responsibility extends not after the situation, also extends before the situation. You don't ever find yourself pregnant. You find yourself, the series of decisions led to that point in most cases. There are some situations that don't. And so I think that those things have to be also talked about, because choice, nobody's taken anybody's choice. A lot of choices were made before to get to a point. And so I don't think that necessarily people who are pro-life are saying, you're not going to have a choice on this. We're just saying, like, I'm a believer that I'm going to do what I can to protect a life. Ronald Reagan has a great quote. He said, I can't help but notice that everybody who's for abortion has already been born. You know, there has to be somebody who is a voice for the unborn. And I truly am a voice. It's not just the unborn. It's children. It's women. It's teenagers. It's men. I have spent a career fighting for it. And so I'm one of those people that loves freedom, and I will fight for people's freedom. But I also think that everybody's going to have a different opinion on this. And you used a word, bamboozled. And that they're using this as an issue to divide Americans. And they use other issues to divide Americans. And there's a lot of division going on because the power of America is we the people. If the people were to stand up and come together and say, we don't all agree on everything, but we agree that that sucks, and we're not on the right path, they're afraid of that. So what do? You divide people. You divide people on COVID. You divide people on race. You divide people on religion. You divide people on abortion. And I just ask people to say, look, we are never all going to agree on this issue. However, we still have other issues that are affecting all of us in this country, and we don't want to forget those and let these politicians push us into a single issue vote.
I follow Ruben Gallego on Twitter. We'll have Ruben on the show. We'll also have Carrie on the show. So that's what he's campaigning on, like a lot of Democrats across the country. You know that this Roe v. Wade, the overturn, has brought a lot of women, especially, into the political process that otherwise wouldn't be. That's obvious. You know that. I'm sure you have your internal numbers. So if Ruben was sitting here with us today, he would be hammering you, right? He'd be hammering you, oh, any Republican, oh, Sheriff Lamb, you're, anti-women's rights, anti-women's choice, anti-women's body. He'd be hammering you on this. What do you say to someone that's maybe an independent voter right now in the state of Arizona that kind of is leaning towards you, but they're really worried about this abortion issue?
I don't think it's about that. Like they will continue to push that this is about a woman's health or a woman's choice. 1% of abortions are done in a clinic, which means those were potentially the health issues. Less than 1% were for rape and incest. Nobody's taken that choice away from women. There's, like we talked about, there's a lot of other choices that were led up to a situation. But we can't discount the life either. Like, I hear a lot of talk about that, and I find it odd that I have to defend myself for protecting unborn children. When there is also, I don't hate people for thinking different. I just believe this. And I think that's goes back to what you're saying is, why do we have to hate each other just because we see things a little bit different? It certainly is not like what they're being portrayed to say that we don't care about women's health. That is so not true. And it is so misleading to the American people. And I think we just have to try to find ways that we can connect and figure out a way through this. This is a situation that, but I will tell you, the federal government should not be the place that decides this. They were right by putting it back into the states. That is the correct place for it to be, because the federal government should be doing constitutional stuff. And I think the Roe v. Wade decision initially was wrong. And now I think they got it right. And let's put it in the states, and the states now will make those decisions.
Will there be a choice on the ballot?
There is going to be a choice.
Right.
And it is I'm going to tell you, it is the opposite. You know, a lot of people were mad about what was called the 1864 law.
Correct.
So first of all, just to clarify,
I was mad about that, just so you know.
So just so you know, it was re-ratified in 1901, 1913, 1928, 1977. And just as recently, the judges affirmed this again. Whether we like it or not, they want to play it off as an 1864 thing. This had been on both parties, Democrats and Republicans, in 1977, still reaffirmed it. But it was 3 years after Roe v. Wade. And so it was nullified because there was a federal law that superseded it. And when that came out, I forgot where I was going with this.
So we're going on the choice on the ballot.
Oh, yes. So there's a referendum, and look, politics is playing a part in this. And you should see that, because there was a design to push this out into the forefront to get people angry about it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to push a ballot that is the opposite direction. The ballot would allow you, here's some of the issues with this ballot measure that's going to come out. And there's a push to say that it goes too far, because it allows you to take the life of the child all the way up until the day of birth. It also allows for a trafficker to rape their victims, take them to an abortion clinic, and don't have to report it to anybody. And as a law enforcement guy, I'm very concerned about this. A coach at a school could rape a 14-year-old and take that 14-year-old to the clinic under this law, and nobody would have to report it to law enforcement or to the parents. So what I'm saying, that goes too far.
Wow.
So these are some of the issues that they
Why are those our choices? Like, that pisses me off.
That's so appalling.
Why can't we have a...
And there's worse things than that, but those are three really egregious things that we cannot have a law that actually would help.
But why
traffickers.
is that the choice on that? Why can't we have your side, the pro-life side, okay, clear, and then the pro-choice side, but not all, not like after birth or up until birth or with what you're talking about, like rapist stuff, but something that's like, well, that's kind of reasonable. A lot of Republicans have come out, even Donald Trump has come out, okay, like a reasonable number on weeks. Why does it have to be so extreme on the other side?
That's where we're at in the world. Bamboozling.
I mean, who wrote that?
The complete opposite. And so the push against the 1864 was large in part to open the door for the other way to say, hey, we have a solution.
Right.
Most people won't take the time to really look into what the solution is. It's too far. So I think before that, I think the legislature is likely going to come up with something that's more in between.
Okay.
I think, because they already said they're going to repeal the law. So now I think people are going to be looking. I think the Republicans are motivated to try to find something more in the middle.
Yeah.
Because they don't want that alternative to the other side.
Yeah.
And so...
And they also don't want to lose.
And I'm not running for the legislature.
Right.
I'm running for the state Senate. So this is going to be a crazy...
Well, thank you for speaking on that in depth, because, I got to be honest with you, I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes for a moment. Really touchy subject. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, you're running, and you probably, I don't know what your
Can I tell you,
was.
like, I hope anybody listening sees me as a guy who I believe in something. I'm not telling you what people want to hear just so I can get votes.
Right.
That's what politicians do. I'm here to tell you what I believe in. And I'm here to say, like, look, marijuana is a perfect example. I don't like marijuana necessarily. I've been a law enforcement guy. Do I think it's the violent drug? No, by any way, shape, or form. The voters voted to legalize marijuana for recreational use in the state of Arizona. I lost a son and a daughter and a granddaughter to somebody under the influence of marijuana driving. I still support the law because they passed it. The people passed the law. I uphold the law. But does that mean that on a personal note that I don't have a personal opinion about it? I do. And so I think what people need to know is I'm a believer in the law. And when they decide what the law will be, and like we did for so long under Roe v. Wade, there will be a law that is in place. And I think you want to know that whether I agree or don't agree, when we finally pick the lane we're going to be in, that I am a rule of law guy and that I stand up for the people and the law. And so I think that's what people should want, that somebody's not going to just tell them what they want to hear just so they can win an election.
You're wearing some bracelets there, the Sheriff Foundation and the blue. Do you feel like, and there's no better person to ask this question to, do you feel like since the trauma of George Floyd and everything that our country went through, have officers and communities, have they begun to heal that relationship now? Obviously, it's a difficult time to ask this because we're seeing the protests all over. But to me, that's sort of like a separate thing. That's like international
I don't
stuff.
think they're mad at the cops.
No, correct. Do you think that is healed? Are we healed as a country as far as communities and the blue? It's better.
It's better. It's better. I think this really started in the mid-2000s where I think that really phones, people started having videos and I think that changed and politicians used it to kind of undermine the rule of law. And then other groups started, people make a lot of money off of these tragedies, which is sad. And then it becomes a hot topic and a political issue. And then you've got these groups out pushing it. I do think it's better since 2020. And what I've tried to do in my agency, if you know, we're very out there on the social media side of things. We are out there all over the place. Why? Because I think you have to put deposits in the bank account of trust long before you ever have withdrawals. And you take a look at some of the places where they really struggled after what we saw in Minnesota. When you take a look at that, those folks, they weren't putting a lot of deposits in their bank. They weren't doing a lot within the community. They didn't have the community on their side. And so when something bad happened, boom, it just blew up. It was like a ticking time bomb. Well, the agencies who really worked hard to have a good relationship with their community, we're able to kind of transcend those withdrawals, those bad things. If you have to take somebody's life, in a situation, we're able to transcend those because we have a good relationship with our community. And I think to answer your question, that was a long way of saying, I think it's a little bit better. I think we have a long way to go. But I also see aggressiveness towards police officers increasing.
Yeah, like a disrespect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've definitely noticed that with the phones and things, because then you get all this, clout.
It's so, like you said, it's social media, it's TikTok, it's another topic we can talk about. Well, I guess we can finish with this, and I appreciate you coming in today and answering all the difficult questions. You're in a race right now, we talked for a little bit off camera, that is the whole eyes of the country are on this race. You have different ideologies. You have a man in Ruben Gallego that is, I would say, he's tough. I mean, I read his tweets. I mean, he he's kind of like a liberal Trump in a way. I'm saying it, Sheriff Lamb's not. I mean, he swings for the fences. He's got name recognition as well. He's a Gallego, right? His ex-wife has endorsed him as the mayor of Phoenix. And then you've got, obviously, elephant in the room, you've got Carrie Lake. In some ways, if you were running in a different cycle, you would be more of the poster child here. Is there an advantage to kind of, I don't want to say being under the radar, but kind of not being in all of that Mar-a-Lago MAGA crowd and sort of just being the steady common sense guy?
There's a reason I'm not in it. Into the polarizing pieces of it is because I've tried to be a common sense person, a well-tempered person. When we're going to send somebody to Senate, we want a well-tempered person. And just FYI, I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I don't focus on my opponents. I think that's what we're all tired of in politics. I don't want you to tell me why the person that's running for the same position is not worthy of it. I'm here to tell you what my qualifications are. I think that there is no other candidate that's more experienced in the border, which is the number one issue that we're dealing with. I have run a large agency. I've managed a budget of over $60 million. While it's not trillions, I have still managed a government budget. I've stayed within that budget. So I know about that aspect of it. The rule of law, crime is on the rise across the country. We have successfully reduced our crime index every year. We've been in Pinal County. We're the safest large county in the state. And we've done it because we understand the rule of law, the complexities to it. The border's the same thing. We've got Yuma and we've got Nogales that rely on trade coming into this. They rely on workers coming across and working in the fields and doing all these other jobs. There's a lot to it, and you've got to have somebody that really understands it. And then obviously the national security, those are issues that we're facing, all of us. I think that fentanyl has become the greatest threat to Americans. Look no further. It's killing 100,000 American lives a year, fentanyl poisoning. So I think now is the time where we need somebody that's really experienced in these issues and in having had some experience in government. And so that's what I do. I go tell people what I bring to the table, who I am, what I am as a man, and then the people get to decide whether they're going to vote for me or not. That's the beauty of America.
Do you feel like there could be sort of a tipping point here? I guess what I'm getting at is, could there be something, I sort of feel it, something that happens, or just something that all of a sudden your numbers start to drastically increase? Because I talk to voters every day, and I talk to people from both sides and a lot of independents.
Please tell me they're voting for me.
Well, what I would say is, especially on the national level, when we talk about Trump and Biden, and I was with Mr. Kennedy the other night, people are they're sick of Biden. And a lot of people are sick of the Trump stuff. So they're kind of looking for something. Unfortunately, on the presidential level, looks like we're probably not going to get that because Mr. Kennedy's not polling high enough. But here in Arizona, I hear the same thing. They're really sick of the far left. They're really sick of the far right, and they just kind of want someone that's just going to kind of, walk down the road with us here and have some common sense, a phrase we keep using. Do you think something could happen where it's like, no, the sheriff is the guy. The sheriff is the guy. He's strong on drugs. He's strong on the border. He's strong on national security. This is what's important right now in our state. I mean, I feel that. Okay, it could be that Carrie does something else. She gets a White House appointment. Yeah, you smile at that, right? Who knows? She could be the next press secretary. She could be a vice presidential pick. Who knows what could happen? But I just foresee something happening where all of a sudden the conversation it really gets a lot tighter than it is at this moment.
I agree. We feel the same way. Part of it may be the primary. I really think we're doing better in the primary than what a lot of people say. It's kind of that whole very unhappy with everything type of attitude amongst the fact that we have so many independents in the state of Arizona tells you they're tired of both parties. And so what they want is somebody that's actually going to represent them. Look, I'm a Republican, but I'm a lifelong conservative. And the Republican Party best espouses the things that I believe in. But I am an American. I'm for Americans. I want to represent all Americans, and I'm easy to get along with. You can go down to the state house and say, hey, how do you like Sheriff Lamb? Well, I don't like what he stands for, but he's a nice guy.
I can feel that about you. I can feel the authenticity.
And that's, I think, what
I can.
I'm bringing that to the table, and I'm putting it in front of this is what elections should be. I bring it in front of the people, and they can decide if they like me or don't like me. And I think that that moment may be winning the primary because it will be such a shock to a lot of people.
You think you could pull that off?
Well, I think we are pulling it off. If
you win the primary.
And that's the moment that changes everything.
Okay.
And
we need the change.
That's what it is. It's the primary.
What I can tell you, though, is my wife and I are in a good place. We're in the arena. We're trying to do something about it. Nobody can, in the end, if you're going to complain about it, you might be willing to do something about it. If we don't win, we don't win. We're going to work hard. We're going to have a good attitude. We're going to be positive, and we're going to try to stay above all this nonsense. And in the end, it will be what it's going to be. And either way, my wife and I win.
I have one more thing around the wild courage. So I see that you're clear about what courage is. And for me, there's an aspect of vulnerability. I think it takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable. And that's where authenticity kind of holds hands. How do you find yourself courageous?
I'm willing to stand up for what I think is, this country. I mean, I'm willing to stand alone. And I think that's where courage is. COVID was a perfect example. When they were locking everybody down, I said in Pinal County, we're not doing it. We're not doing the mask mandates. We're not doing the vaccines. Some people were mad about it, whatever. But I was willing to stand alone. And I pretty much did. I pretty much stood alone on that. And I think that's what we need we need courageous politicians, courageous people in service that are willing to stand on their own. You talked about the two aspects of politics right now. I'm not guided by, I don't have any endorsements by all the people. I don't want them. I don't want money from all these groups that are going to try to tell me how. I am here to understand what does Arizona need and what are we going to do to fix it. And I think that wild courage, I'm kind of like a wild stallion that's out there that nobody can break. And I run my own course. I roam free on the field. I eat the grass that I want to eat, but I do it in a way that doesn't affect other people negatively. I do it in a way that promotes everybody else, promotes Arizona, promotes America. And so I think that's the wild courage that we need right now, is somebody that's willing to buck the system and be different.
Oh, I love that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you
That
guys.
was
It's a
excellent.
pleasure.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
We'll see y'all very soon. Bye now. Hey everyone, we're at the Pad Lab studio in Scottsdale, your go-to for real estate and mortgages. Whether you're buying, selling, or need financing, trust their 2 decades of expertise. Visit padlabaz.com to kickstart your journey. And if you're a pro seeking a dynamic team, check out padlabcareers.com. Let's make moves with Pad Lab.